Now let's go deep into what exactly are the factors influencing prosocial behavior. Prosocial behaviors are acts that are socially defined and are generally beneficial to other people, which are shaped by both cognitive and affective processes. The aspect of helping or not helping goes through a series of decision-making process, which we have seen in the earlier chapters when we covered what is prosocial behavior and some of the aspects of it. And adding to it, some of the concepts like bystander effect, pluralistic ignorance plays an important role, whether the person receives help or not, and whether the helping person providing help will help or not. In this particular aspect, prosocial behavior has challenged social scientists also to know why people engage in prosocial behavior, which are beneficial to others, which again can be very risky for the individual who performs the action. In psychologist's point of view, there might be many reasons why people engage in prosocial behavior. It is believed that most of the behavior is fostered during childhood and adolescence, as adults encourage children to share, act, and kindly and help others. Evolutionary psychologists usually explain prosocial behavior in terms of laws of natural selection. The idea of kin selection suggests that helping members of your own genetic family makes it more likely that your kin will survive and pass on the genes to the future generations. Adding to this, researchers have been able to produce evidence that people are often more likely to help those whom they are closely related. The idea of reciprocity says that when people indulge in helpful action for others, the person feels compelled to help out in return. Importantly, helping others means that they might also help us in return. It was also seen that people who understood that helping others might lead to reciprocal kindness were more likely to survive. The characteristics of the situation can also have a powerful impact on whether or not people engage in prosocial acts. For example, bystander effect. It is very much known that the experiment on bystander effect is one of the famous experiments of how situation can influence helping behaviors. We know that the bystander effect refers to the tendency for people to become less likely to assist a person in distress, where there are a number of other people who are present. For example, if you accidentally dropped your purse on the ground, and in this situation the likelihood that someone will come and help you decreases if there are more people around you and increases if there are very less people around you. The likelihood of helping again depends on various factors like the attributes of the victim, which again determines the attraction, details of the situation, whether or not the problem is the responsibility of the victim, and exposure to prosocial models, either in immediate situation or in bystanders' past experience. Hence, let us talk in more detail about the factors which influences these prosocial behaviors. The following are some of the specific factors which influences prosocial behavior in a society, and they are: first one is situational factors, second is personal factors, then third is self-interest, moral integrity and moral hypocrisy, emotional factors, and the fifth one is personality disposition. Let us go deep into each of the factors. Coming to situational and personal factors, among the factors that affect the likelihood of helping are the attributes of the victim, which determines attention, the details of the situation that indicate whether or not the problem is the responsibility of the victim, exposure to prosocial models either in immediate situation or in the bystander's past experience. It is already proven that some people are more prosocial than others. They are more likely to understand others' thoughts and feelings and try to take perspectives. Prosocial children tend to be positive in their emotional expression, socially competent, well adjusted, well regulated, and have a positive self-concept. It is seen that in childhood and adulthood, people who usually reason the moral conflicts in a more mature way are more likely to provide help when compared to their counterparts. And it is how the situational and the personal factors play an important role. When it comes to particular situational factors, they can have a powerful impact on person's willingness to help if a person wants help, but he cannot afford it. Then in that situation, the person cannot offer help. If we closely observe the mood swings in a person, it is seen that people who are in good mood are likely to help others more than people in neutral moods, and sometimes people in bad mood also help others in order to make their mood positive. In situational and personal factors, some of the aspects which influences prosocial act are helping those you like. In this particular aspect, most of the research has been on providing help to strangers because it is very clear or obvious that people are very likely to help their family members and friends. If a close relative is attacked by a killer, we definitely will be able to help them. Suppose think that the victim is a stranger but resembles to you with respect to age and race, then that victim is also definitely is in a process of being helped. Any characteristic that affects attraction also increases the probability of a prosocial response. For example, appearance increases or influences prosocial behavior, and physically attractive victims receive more help than an unattractive one. This is what the research suggests. Some of them have this automatic tendency to imitate the behavior of those with whom we interact. Humans are found to mimic the accent, the tone of voice, and the rate of speech of those around them. They also mimic the postures, mannerisms, etc. Then coming to the aspect of helping those who are not responsible for their problem. Just consider a situation where you are walking down a street and you passed a man lying unconscious. Apart from the influences of other factors and the presence of bystanders to interpersonal attraction, there is an additional consideration why a man is lying here. Is his clothes are stained, or you might even decide that he is a hopeless drinker who passed out on a street. So these subtle cues might lead you to decide, and based on the attributions about the reasons that person might be lying unconscious on the street, we will be less likely to help a stranger with a wine bottle than the one with the cut on his head. That means in general we are less likely to act if we believe that the victim is to blame for his or her predicament. Then coming to exposure to prosocial models increases prosocial behavior. Under this, help is much more likely given in situation where recently we witnessed someone else receiving the help. Prosocial models facilitate such behavior whether they are member of our family, TV characters, or strangers. The presence of helpful bystander provides a strong social model and results in an increase in helping behavior among the remaining bystanders. An example of such modeling is provided by a field experiment in which a young woman with a flat tire parked her car just off the road, and the motorists who have seen were much more inclined to stop and help this woman. There was again another particular experiment in which another woman with a car trouble was seen receiving assistance. So this particular experiment was conducted by Brian. In addition to this prosocial model in our surroundings, helpful models in the media also contribute to the creation of social norm that encourages prosocial behavior. For example, if our favorite actor or actress is seen offering help, then we also tend to mimic his or her behavior. And adding to these, additional examples also confirm the influence of positive TV models. So now let's see how self-interest, moral integrity and moral hypocrisy affects the prosocial behavior. Self-interest is the motivation to engage in whatever behavior and which provides the greatest satisfaction of oneself. It is also named as egoism, which means that much of our behavior is based on seeking whatever provides us the most satisfaction. We seek rewards and try to avoid punishments. People whose primary motive is self-interest are not concerned about questions of right or wrong or fair and unfair. They simply do what is best for themselves. Coming to moral integrity, it is the motivation to be moral and to be engaged in moral behavior. There are some people who are strongly motivated by moral integrity. They care about questions such as goodness and fairness, when they can act, and frequently agree to sacrifice at least some self-interest in order to do the right thing. For a person who is motivated by morality, the conflict between self-interest and moral integrity is resolved by making a moral choice. The moral decision making is a very complex process, and deciding how to act in a situation within the particular domain is what we see here. Coming to moral hypocrisy, these are people who want to appear moral while avoiding the cost of actually being moral. Their behavior is motivated by moral hypocrisy and they are driven by self-interest, but are also concerned with outward appearances. It is important for them to care about doing the right thing while they in fact act to satisfy their own needs. Coming to emotional factors. Emotional state, if you see, of a person is particularly determined by both internal and external factors, and they are often divided into positive and negative emotions. It is seen that being in a good mood would increase the tendency to help others, while being in a bad mood would interfere with helping. Coming to positive emotions and how it helps prosocial behavior, in this aspect, research indicates that people are more willing to help a stranger when their mood has been elevated. For instance, sometimes listening to a comedian will enhance the mood of a person on a positive note. According to Ian and Levin, just spending outdoors on a pleasant day can influence the emotions to a great extent. Emotions are influenced by the smell or a fragrance, that is, a pleasant fragrance makes us feel better, and this positive mood affects our behavior. Under specific circumstances, a positive mood can decrease the probability of responding in a prosocial way. Under specific certain circumstances, a positive mood can decrease the probability of responding in a prosocial way, such as a bystander in a very positive mood who encounters an ambiguous emergency tends to interpret the situation as a non-emergency. Sometimes it also seems that a good emotion gives us a feeling of independence and includes the power to turn our back on someone in need. Coming to negative emotions and its influence on prosocial behavior, negative emotions will most often have a negative effect on prosocial behavior. If the negative feelings are not too intense, and if the emergency is clear-cut than ambiguous, and the act of helping is not interesting and satisfying, and indeed is dull and unrewarding. According to Emoto in the year 1986, it is commonly assumed that someone in a negative mood is less likely to help others, and it is true that an unhappy person who is focusing on this or her problems is less likely to engage in prosocial acts. Coming to the personality dispositions and how it affects the prosocial behavior. If you see personality disposition, it is generally a behavioral tendency that is based on genetics, learning, experiences, or both. Such dispositions tend to be stable over time and across situations. They are based on differences in genetic composition, learning experiences, or a combination of the two, and such dispositions tend to be relatively consistent over time. For example, children who seem to be prosocial have a tendency to be the same even when they grow into their adolescence age. Much of the interest in the individual differences in helpfulness has concentrated on much of the empathy. When it comes to empathy, empathy consists of affective and cognitive responses to another person's emotional state and includes sympathy, a desire to solve the problem and taking the perspective of the other person. An affective component is essential to empathy, and young children too feel distress in response to the distress of theirs. A cognitive component of empathy appears to be uniquely human quality that develops only after we progress beyond infancy. Such cognitions include the ability to consider the viewpoint of another person, and sometimes referred to as perspective taking, and the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes or someone else's position. People also differ to a great extent how they respond to the emotional distress, and these at one extreme are those who enjoy inflicting pain and humiliation on a helpless victim. Either because of genetic differences or behaviors of different socialization experiences, women express higher levels of empathy than do men. According to 𝗧𝗏, Collins and Embry in the year 1994, some of the other dispositional factors also includes belief in just world. The just world phenomenon is a tendency to believe that people who live in the world get what they deserve. Because people want to believe that the world is fair, they will look for ways to explain or rationalize away the injustice, often blaming the person in a situation who is actually the victim. In this context, helpful individuals perceive the world as a fair and predictable place in which good behavior is rewarded and bad behavior is punished. And the belief leads to the conclusion that helping those in need is the right thing to do, as expectations that the person who is helping will actually benefit from doing a good deed. Then another aspect is social responsibility. Social responsibility is an aspect in which individuals are accountable to fulfilling their duty, where an individual has an obligation to work and cooperate with other individuals and organizations for benefit of society at a very large extent. The most helpful individuals also express that each person is responsible for doing his or her best to assist anyone who needs help. The diffusion of responsibility, which sometimes happen in providing help, is again a phenomenon by which person is less likely to take responsibility for action or inaction when other bystanders or witnesses are present. It refers to decreased responsibility of action when each member of a group feels when she or he is a part of group. Prosocial behavior to a great extent is influenced by social responsibility of person who provides the help. Now let us talk about another aspect, that is internal locus of control. When we see what is locus of control, it depicts how strongly a person believes they have control over the situations which affects their lives. There are two types of locus of control. First is the internal locus of control and second is the external locus of control. People who have internal locus of control believe that their success or failure is a result of their hard work and internal factors, whereas people who have external locus of control believe that their success or failure results from external factors beyond their control, such as luck, fate, circumstances, injustice, and being unskilled. This is the belief that a person can choose to behave in ways that maximize good outcomes and minimize the bad ones. People who fail tend to have an external locus of control and believe that their behavior is irrelevant because outcomes are controlled by luck, fate, people in positions of power, and other uncontrollable factors. And this factor of locus of control plays an important role in influencing prosocial behavior. People who are governed by internal locus of control do not think about the external factors and indulge in prosocial act, and people who are controlled by external factors, their motivation to help can and indulge in prosocial act may again depend on other factors too. Now let's talk about how low egocentrism affects the prosocial behavior. Egocentrism refers to the inability to understand that another person's view or opinion may be different than their own and represents a cognitive bias. Altruistic people do not tend to be self-absorbed and competitive, and hence these factors also influence the prosocial behavior. Therefore, these are all which we spoke about are some of the factors which can influence a person to indulge in a prosocial act. So now let's see what we have learnt in this lesson. In this particular lesson, we have seen the various factors which influences prosocial behavior, such as personal factors, situational factors, moral integrity, moral hypocrisy. Then we have also seen emotional factors like how negative emotions and positive emotions influences the prosocial behavior, and adding to that we have also seen how personality disposition factors affects the prosocial behavior. And we have also seen some of the specific factors in personal and situational factors and personality disposition which again influences the person whether they are acting to help or not.